Welcome, everybody. It's your host, Cam, and no Rich. So, Rich is a little busy today. He got snowed in, he's got work, he's got some things. It's Super Bowl Sunday. It's very unfortunate we don't have him here, but we still got to go, The show goes on, and that's how it is. So, here we are today. Just me, solo episode, ISO Cam. So, D up, right in the chat, say what's good. Um, Today, we're going to mainly talk about anything but the Super Bowl, even though it's Super Bowl Sunday. Mainly because I didn't watch the NFL like that this year. So go Chiefs, go Eagles, do whatever they want. I don't care. Good for them. It's going to be a good game. I could watch. I'm not a fan of anybody. I'm not biased. I didn't watch too much this season, so I can be like, I told you the Eagles are going to win. I didn't tell you shit. I'm going to watch a good game today. So we'll see how it goes and determine the NFL season. So good luck to both teams. Moving on, we had the UFC last night, which was pretty solid. We also had the NBA trade deadline, and also I want to always add this because I feel like it just gets glossed over. We had a lot of WNBA moves. I feel like the whole league shifted. So I really want to get into the WNBA trades and everything that's going on there. But of course, we need to address the NBA trade deadline, and of course, obviously the UFC that just happened last night. If you tune in to Too Generic, usually or weekly, we have our shows Sunday mornings at 8 a.m., 11 a.m. if you're on the East Coast. Uh, and we cover pretty much UFC, NBA, and WNBA. We'll probably dabble into pop culture as our third sport. But the NFL, obviously, Super Bowl's today, so I just made the title Super Bowl Sunday, put a little Super Bowl picture. But also, if you know us, like the thumbnail is the meme. So you got to kind of understand that like, look through our thumbnails. It's always a meme, it's always a play on something. So we just like to have fun, have something to laugh about, come hang out, listen to a podcast, not take ourselves too seriously, but at the same time, speak about some things that we're passionate about and that we do take serious. The walking contradiction of two generic white guys on a pod. It's what every radio show is. That's why all of it is ironic. Anyway, let's go to the UFC from last night. So I got the UFC events tab pulled up, and let me share that for y'all, actually. Here we go. So we can start off on the early early prelims. Started off with a guy that it looks like my last name. My last name is Quinlan. His name is Keelan. It's my name without a N in it. But Keelan Salkild. I don't know how to say his last name, but I knew how to say his first name. Anyway, knocked out a guy in 19 seconds. Started off the night pretty good. I was actually really hoping for the fight between. Let's see if they got it even listed on here anymore. Yeah, Park Young Sung. Every fight with Park Young Sung has actually been pretty interesting, and then I've been hearing this other guy, Nyama Garjal, is actually pretty fucking good, and he was supposed to come and whoop Park Young Sung's ass, and Park Young Sung's undefeated, and that was kind of like the underlying thing, according to Chael. If you listen to Chael Sonnen at all, former UFC fighter, former lightweight contender. He lost in the match against John Jones. If you don't remember, he broke his toe off, threw it into the fans, threw it into the crowd. Crowd was screaming. They were terrified. That's what Chael does. You fight Chael Sonnen, he's gonna rip your toe off, throw in the front row. Very dangerous fight, Chael Sonnen. But anyway, he basically said Park Young Sung was gonna get upset, and this dude missed weight. Yamagarjal, however you pronounce his last name. Dude's supposed to be the next up and comer at 125. So I was pretty interested in seeing him this week. But then, like I said, he misses weight. Kind of ruins the whole thing. That was supposed to be his little coming out party. He was supposed to beat Park Young Sung, undefeated fighter who was supposed to go 10-0. Everyone thought he was like an extreme betting favorite, but I don't think people understood who the other guy was. And I guess Chael is upset because he's like, the dude got his opportunity to like kind of wake everybody up and put people on notice, but then he messed it up himself by missing weight. So I mean, sometimes the best fighters just get in their own way, and they're not really. How could I say this? Sometimes the best fighters in the world who are on TV aren't the actual best fighters in the world, if that makes sense. I feel like basketball players also know a story like this. You know, people who might have been better but didn't have the grades to make the team. So those people just go on to be Amazon workers and everything else. You know what I'm saying? Some people had the grades and the favoritism and the politics to keep them in the sport as long as possible, which gave them the platform to then, go on. But if you stop playing or you're not necessarily in the UFC or in a professional fight league because you're missing weight and you can't meet these demands, you will never be considered the top fighter in the world, even though if you're locked in a cage with somebody and got the equal training they did and everything else, might be a different result at the end than what you expect. So I guess this guy completely botched something and Chael was pissed. So I'm interested to see the next time he fights. Let's see if he actually does something, or maybe Chael was just wrong and was overhyped about nothing. It's a fight that didn't happen. So this is a hypothetical argument. But it was kind of interesting to hear him actually ride for a 125er. I've never heard him actually talk about an undercard 125er. So the guy might be impressive. Who knows? So we'll keep that in mind. Probably 3-4 months down the line, which will be probably like 12 to 15 episodes from now. So just, keep an eye on it. Moving on to the prelim card, the big homie Wang Kong came away with the victory. Definitely beat Bruno Brazil. We already know what Wang Kong, incredible striker. It's the ground game and clinching and everything else that, she had some struggles with in the last fight that she lost. Borzchev, I always root for this guy. He's a good fighter. He seems like an underdog in every fight. And sometimes he just you know, gets one. Fun to root for. But overall, this was a really good UFC card. Jake Matthews with the win. Knew that was going to happen. Called it on the Jimmy Crute. Knew Jimmy Crute wasn't going to win this one. Didn't know who this guy was from a can of paint. Never heard of him. Day in my life. So it was interesting. I had to go look up what he was doing and how his fight style was. But I didn't really I don't really believe in all of Jimmy Crute's victories and stuff like that. So I just wasn't convinced. And this is pretty much how I picked the card last week. I said this dude is way too damn big because Tafa's like 6 feet tall in the heavyweight division. You got this guy coming at 6'7". His measurements were just ridiculous, and I just don't see that being like a productive matchup. There was a big weight difference, height difference, wingspan, record difference. Tafa was coming in there 7-4, and this guy was 7-0, and like it just looked like a competition gap and everything. So that was like an easy pick for me. If you tune into the show, or have tuned in the past, you already know I'm obsessed with Wei Li. Every fight I pick Wei Li, even when she loses. So it's not always the best pick. Uh, like I'm not the most proud and like told you so, because I would have picked her regardless. Even if she lost, I would have been like, oh, I picked Wei Li. It is what it is. But DDP, I knew DDP was going to win because from what I learned, listening to a lot of fighters throughout the years and everything, especially about Sean Strickland, because when fighters and people talk about Sean Strickland, they tend to speak too much. When you're talking about Sean Strickland, he invokes emotion with what he talks about and what he says in his interviews and everything. So people speak a little more freely when they talk about Sean Strickland, and that also gives you opportunities to pick up on betting tips and things like that, and just predictors in the future about their fights and things like that. So I remember from a long time ago that Sean Strickland kicks everyone's ass in the first fight. I've heard that forever. Everybody who says they spar with him, it doesn't matter who you are. The first time you spar with Sean Strickland, he's going to beat you up because you don't know what the hell he's doing. You can't really figure him out because he has a unique style that he like invented in mixed martial arts. Yes, he does the Philly shell boxing style. No one does the Philly shell, and he also does some other weird unorthodox things. He has an incredible sprawl game, and he also has a bad leg. He has like a bad knee because of a motorcycle accident. So like the fact that this guy can even sprawl this good, he's got a lot of weird things that people aim for the knee, but he can sprawl good. So it's almost like a distraction. It's like, oh my God, I got a bad knee. So it's like, oh, it's sprawl for the guy who's on one leg. And he's got some pretty good takedown defense. So you end up wasting your time with that. And by the time you're done figuring out that 3 of your takedown attempts failed, he already probably punched you in the face a couple times. He's gonna pepper you in. He's gonna get you upset. Every time you go in, you're gonna miss. He's gonna punch you 2 times for every one, though 0 times you punch him. Sean Strickland's annoying. He knows how to do it. He robs the bank and he leaves. He doesn't really stick around and get hit too often. So, fighting Sean Strickland the first time, not a lot of people figure that out, especially in sparring or in the cage. But by the second time, you figure out his patterns, his timing, and everything else. And then you realize like some of the stuff that he does is for show. Some of the stuff that he does, he's not really in a threatening position, but you think he was potentially going to be. And the more film and time and feel in the ring, you understand that. And every fighter that apparently fights Sean Strickland for a second and third time has greater success. And the more you fight Sean Strickland, the higher success rate you have against him every single time. So they say like by the fourth or fifth time you spar Sean Strickland in the gym and everything with real practice and like what you're figuring out, that you're gonna beat Sean Strickland. You walk through Sean Strickland. But at first he's very confusing. Some things are just like that. Some people have just weird matchups, weird styles, and as soon as you know, now you know, and you know the one thing to do to stop them, and it makes everything else not work as good, and it just kind of follows like that in a trend. So yeah, I'm pretty happy with my picks. I wish I I wish I didn't live in Cali and could have did a parlay. But if anything, I would have picked Crute to lose. So that I think is my only miss in the main card this week. I wouldn't have called a draw. I would have never predicted a draw. I would have said Jimmy Crute to lose, not Jimmy Crute to draw. So yeah, I would say I'm 4-5. You know, I did say Jimmy Crute wouldn't win, and he didn't win. So does that count as 5 out of 5? Chat, let me know. Is that 5 out of 5 or 4 out of 5? If I said he wasn't going to win and he drawed, is that true? He didn't win. But on a parlay slip, I would have said Bellotto would have won. So technically, I would have lost my slip. But anyway, Jake Matthews, and he had a great fight against who I consider probably one of the best up and coming fighters in the UFC is Michael Morales. Very slept on. People still don't know his name like that. I think more people know who Jake Matthews is than Michael Morales. Michael Morales beat Jake Matthews. So, what I'm saying is, if you think Jake Matthews is pretty good, there's a guy that beat him that's up and coming, and nobody knows he's coming. So there's a couple giants on their way up, like Chimaev at 185. Obviously, people know who Chimaev is now, but he's still like I think the best 185er, maybe 170, best 185er in the world, and he's not the champ. How are you the best 185er in the world but not the champ? And that's the same thing I was saying earlier with the Park Young Sung fight at 125. The guy didn't make weight. Does that mean he's not the best 125er in the world? We don't know. But I would say that, like Chimaev, do you think Chimaev can beat DDP? Potentially. But I do think there are big problems for him with Chimaev. The only option I would say that DDP has to beat Chimaev is the gas tank. Because DDP can go forever. You could do 10 rounds with DDP, and he'll probably go, all right, go to your corner, go to the 11th. We're going back for a little water and a little pep talk from our coach, and we're right back out there. That's how DDP is. Chimaev is not like that. Chimaev wants to get you out of there in the first round. So I think a 5-rounder with DDP at 185 could be a really interesting matchup. I strongly believe Chimaev is the best 185er in the world. It's hard to argue it. At the same time, it's very hard to say DDP couldn't win that after what he just did last night. But I did say, I kind of gave you the answers right here. the second fight against Strickland. This was an easy night of work in comparison to the first one because DDP had the answers to the test. Sean Strickland's going to do the same thing no matter what. So I don't think DDP changes things for Sean. Sean plays his game. He has his thing. He sticks by his code. He has like a rule book, and that's it. He doesn't go outside the rule book. It's his book. That's it. DDP, on the other hand, you watch him, and it's like, what style is he doing? You see him. He was, you know, raised in South Africa, and he did a lot of like Greco-Roman wrestling as a kid. But then you see him a lot of stand up, and he trained for a long time in Thailand. So he's got the kickboxing background. He really loves the Muay Thai, the knees, the elbows, just everything. A little shoulder bump if he's got it, like whatever it is. It feels like DDP will hit you with any phalange possible and find a way to make it hurt. So I think DDP would be a pretty good matchup for Chimaev, and I also don't think any other person would be a good matchup for Chimaev. Sean Strickland, I think, should be Chimaev's next fight. Sean fights Chimaev, and if Sean could pick apart Chimaev and figure him out, that would be pretty interesting to see. I just don't know if Sean Strickland's bad leg can hold up against Chimaev. I talked about his takedown defense. I talked about how good his sprawling is, but it's Chimaev. That's when Strickland's, sprawl game and the act is over. Your takedown defense is done. It's Chimaev. It's just who he is. That's what he does. And if you look last night, 1 for 2 in 5 rounds, DDP got Sean Strickland down once. It's still impressive, but it's not something he went back to. You don't go back to that well because you can't get him down. It's hard. It's very hard. You know how much energy you have to put in to try to take somebody down, and then it fails, and then they just get back up. Now you're on your knees, climbing back up, trying to catch up with them. It's not a good look. What do we have next week? We have Cannonier and Gregory Rodriguez. That should be pretty interesting. Dang. I'll probably take Gregory. To be real, he's been knocking dudes the fuck out, and Cannonier is 40. It's just hard to keep believing Cannonier is going to be at the top of his game and not just keep falling. This one should be pretty interesting. Youssef Zazal. Got to look into that more because I'm not too familiar with him. 28 though, so he looks younger. Fighting Cater, who caters on a little bit of a slid, a little bit of a skid. Why did I say a slid? Slide. He's sliding down. He's on a skid. He's on a slid. That's the new word. I'm gonna make that. But Edmund Shabazian, he's going up against Dylan Buka. Could be a cool fight there at 185. 185 is my favorite division. There's just so much competition in it right now. Connor Matthews. All right, this card's decent. Not the best, though. Like, Angela Hill is the main event. Jared Gordon was even supposed to be on this card, and he's not. Yeah, this card stinks. Should be pretty interesting fight, though. Angela Hill is always going out there and trying hard. She doesn't finish fights. So this one, I say, is either going to go to distance or early finish. Either way, probably Souza winning. I got to look into what Souza does. But as of late, Angela Hill hasn't been doing much, and she doesn't really have finish potential. So not really looking forward to these fights. This should be a fun fight. Cejudo versus Song Yadong, Brendan Allen and Anthony Hernandez. Definitely taking Brendan Allen in that one. Who else? Got Rob Font, Dominic Cruz. It's a good throwback card. Blades. Edson Barbosa. Oh, Kutelaba. Oh my God, Kutelaba's in this fight. All right, well, there you have it. That's kind of going to be the next 2 weeks. Got to look forward to Song Yadong and Cejudo, though. It's going to be a good fight. Rival versus Cape. Cape could be interesting because what's his name? Who just came into the UFC? Was it Kai Azakura? I believe Kai Azakura fought Cape, and they each have a win over each other. So they should. What I think is going to happen, the story is kind of seems like it's already being written and made. But I think it's going to be Cape gets this victory, and Cape and Kai Azakura are going to have the rubber match. They're the match to break the tie. Should be interesting though. So with this one, hear me out. I'm gonna go with. hmm, I don't know who Mario Pinto is. I was gonna do like a whole parlay here. The only guy I don't know like from a can of paint is right here is Mario Pinto, and he's 9-0. So I want to do a little more research before I make any type of rash decisions. But I'm going with Nazareth, Brundage, Cape, and I'll wait for Austin Lane. The Urseg fight got canceled. And I'll probably have to do some research over here too. But for right now, top three picks: Cape, Brundage, Nazrat. What do we got on the prelims? Charles Johnson fight. Yeah. All right. Well, that's about it for the UFC. I feel like 20 minutes we did on the UFC. That was enough. The cards last night were sleepers. Wei Lee was a sleeper. As I say, I love Wei Lee, but it was a boring fight overall. I mean, she just dominated. Could have just took a nap and then looked at the stats after because it's really what it was. It was just a point domination and went 5 rounds, and it told us Wei Lee's a better fighter. So moving on to the real reason why we're here. The real reason. We are going to share this screen right now, and we're going to talk about the trade deadline summary. So first, Luka Doncic to the Lakers, AD to the Mavs. Holy shit. I still don't believe it happened. Until I see Luka in a jersey. I know I've seen Anthony Davis play for the Mavs and he already got hurt. So maybe that's the reality. That's all the reality I really needed. I understand it's real now. AD got hurt on the Mavs. It's a real trade. Jimmy Butler to the Warriors. Pretty good move. There aren't too many bad trades, if that makes sense. None of them that are like, oh my God. Like the Mavs, I think they were losing Luka. I don't care what anybody says. I think next year he would have signed the Supermax, and within 12 months, he would have demanded his way out, and he would have had for the next 3 years a chaotic, turmoil filled time with the Mavs. The Mavs would have been in turmoil for the next 3 years, and then also they would have been just fucked up for the next years after that, losing Luca and not planning ahead. This way, they actually foisted Luca on someone else and got something in return for it. And I think this was the best time to get out of the Luka Doncic business. Even though Luka Doncic is still one of the top 5 players in the league, I think for the Mavs' sake of their franchise, Luka was going to go in there and kind of ruin it. Hear me out. I'm not saying Nico Harrison is genius. But what I am saying is he seen Luka at right now as a sunk cost fallacy. Like Anything you put more into Luka, any investment, you are not getting back in return. So by definition, it is a sunk cost fallacy to believe in it and still continue to invest in something that is never going to give you the return back on what you're putting into it and will only hurt you more than it'll help you. As good as Luka is, he will want to get out of the Mavericks kind of media storm. You know, you want to get out of that market. I feel like the best market for the money, you go to LA, you go to maybe Boston, you trade Jalen Brown for Luka Doncic. Something like that would probably be in the works. But on the real, I think it would be more along the lines of something like LA. I think LA is a great option. I think he would choose a coastal city in a big city. So he picked LA. He picked the Lakers, biggest market, biggest team to go to on the West Coast. East Coast, maybe the Knicks, but the Knicks are gone, as an option. They're not going to get rid of Brunson. They're not going to let you come in and now Brunson's the number 2 guy after he just left Luka and then proved himself. They're never going to let Luka come in and make Brunson the Robin again. Brunson is Batman in New York. He's not Robin, you know? So you're not going to bring Doncic in there and then make him Robin. It's just weird. It's his team. He's the leader of it. It's how they go. It's the Nova Knicks. It's the way he's running it. He's got his pops there. He's got his managers running the whole thing. Worldwide West. You just got to know the situation to know that Luka would never go to the Knicks in their current rendition, which also would mean he's not going to the Nets because the Nets are the little brother team of New York. So that would really only leave Celtics and Lakers. So since the Celtics weren't given the option to trade, that tells me there might be something with Jalen Brown. I think Jalen Brown could get traded in the next year or two. That's just me. My little conspiracy theory radar is going off. That's why Bill Simmons was so upset. That's why. Bill Simmons was so upset about Luka Doncic getting traded to the Lakers because he wasn't shopped. Meaning the Celtics could have offered to get Luka Doncic, right? And I think that's the key right there. It was Jalen Brown. Because he has one of the biggest contracts in the NBA. Luka has a big deal. Max deal, and then is signing for a super max next year, which Jalen Brown already has. I think the contracts could potentially match or come close. Obviously, Jalen Brown gets paid a little more. But what I'm saying is, I think something along those lines was in the works, potentially. Plus, we know, because I'm not stupid, that this Anthony Davis trade didn't happen and wasn't made the day it was announced. Anthony Davis waived his trade kicker. He wanted to get traded, and he waived it on a specific date that was much prior to the trade. So he knew a trade was in the works. He knew he was leaving. He waived his trade kicker, so the contracts matched fine, and no team had to pay extra, and it caused some apron nonsense. There was a lot more to this trade than what the public knows. So that gives me cause to pause and ask, why wasn't the Celtics involved or anything else? What team feels salty? What's the real truth? I feel like there's a lot of hidden truths around this trade deadline specifically, and more along the lines of the Doncic and AD trade. Something weird was going on there. Luka demanded LA. He said, I was going here anyway. I'm going to demand here in 2 years once I sign the Supermax. Just get me there. I don't have to be an asshole. I don't have to drag my feet for the next 3 years. You don't have to drag your feet for the next 3 years. Let's be real here. That's what's going to happen if you don't make this move. And I feel like everybody collectively did that, and that everybody collectively agreed to be surprised. I don't know. That's my opinion. And just having the facts of the contractual stuff behind the scenes all aligned perfectly with AD waiving his trade kicker. You don't negotiate in your contract hey, I want $45 million a year, but if you trade me, you better pay up because I wanted to be here. So if you trade me, you got to pay a fee because that's how much I loved this team. That's how much I wanted to be here. That you had to trade me. I have to uproot my family, everything. My kids in their school. I got to pick up and move everything. So I'm trying to station myself here. That's what a trade kicker means. If you trade me, you got to pay up an extra fee, and that was negotiated by said player. So, why did he waive the trade kicker? I feel like he knows that if he didn't waive the trade kicker, he would have been marked the bad guy. He already also went through, what it is, the NBA media machine and everything else of what the NBA truly is. I feel like he did this already with New Orleans. He knows how the NBA can just kind of drag you through the mud, drag your name through the mud. You could be awkward with an organization and you guys both resent each other. As soon as you enter the building, I can imagine there being some sort of contention and like awkwardness, You didn't want to get traded for Luka Doncic because you had this trade kicker and now you look selfish. This team can't move on. This team can't get Luka Doncic because you're holding it up. That's just something that I'm picking up on. I could be wrong, but I feel like in time things will come out and the truth will prevail. Moving on, we got De'Aaron Fox to the Spurs. This might actually be the championship piece. So if you have Fox on the Spurs long term, you have CP3 there kind of coaching him up right now, being in his ear. You got Stephon Castle also being coached up by CP3. You see how that affected OKC. You know, you see how CP3 came in there and helped Pods over there in the Warriors. You could just look around and you see all these people that CP3 impacted along his way of being a journeyman at the end of his career. And I'm a big fan of CP3. So whatever he's teaching Fox and Stephon Castle, I think that's going to turn out great for the long-term, successes of the San Antonio Spurs. And I think they won the trade deadline. I know Luka is going to the Lakers, but we already got the Mark Williams trade rescinded. So was it that good? Do you have a lob guy? Do you have a rim protector for Luka? He's not there anymore. Mark Williams is bigger than Wemby. Standing reach. So if you don't got that, the team just starts to fall apart a little bit. Jackson Hayes instead of Mark Williams, yuck. That's how I see it. Christian Coloco or Mark Williams. Come on. Dorian Finney-Smith or Mark Williams. What do you want at the 5? Talk to me. Like, it's not making sense. So anyway, we'll move on. Brandon Ingram to the Raptors. Weird team. Like, are you putting Scotty to the 3 or Ingram to the 3? I think Ingram goes to the 4. Scotty to the 3. RJ to the 2. IQ at the 1. And you got Pirtle at the 5. IQ could shoot. RJ, streaky shooter. I like RJ shooting. I don't care what anybody says. Then Ingram, he doesn't really shoot threes. I don't like that team. Straight up. Good players, good guys. I don't know if they're going to be deadly on the court. Kuzma to the Bucks, very weird. He's having like the least efficient season this year. Not very good when you put that next to Dame, who's not that efficient anymore at scoring compared to what he used to. Giannis is at peak efficiency, but Kyle Kuzma isn't spacing the floor. I just don't see how that's really beneficial. But I guess if Middleton can't even play, Kuzma's better than nothing. So that's my opinion on that. Wiggins to the Heat. Take that for what it is. The Heat probably aiming down, Well, who knows? They might have a little run in the playoffs. They might spook somebody in the first round. But I don't see anything past that. You still need a lot of time for Khalil Ware to develop. You also need Bam to wake the fuck up. You need Hero to keep doing what he's doing. Terry Rozier might be suspended or in jail by the end of the year. Who knows? With this betting stuff, it's a weird time. It's a really weird time. So I don't know about the Heat. Middleton to the Wiz. The Wizard Dunzo. They're going for the first pick. DeAndre Hunter to the Cavs is pretty solid. They got rid of the G Wagon. I love George Niang, but I think DeAndre Hunter is a better NBA player than George Niang. George Niang's very smart. He has great timing. He has a higher level thinking on the basketball court than most players. But at the highest levels, I think you really want a DeAndre Hunter wing to help stop some of the wings in the East. You're going to match up with Giannis and Kuzma. Well, you got DeAndre Hunter. You're going to match up with uh, Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown. And you got Hunter. Or at least you got a wing. You got a solid defensive wing for that. You're going to face up with Mikal Bridges and OG Anunoby. You got something for that. You know, even with the Heat, you're going to face Wiggins and Hero and a mixture of other stuff. Jaime Jaquez, potentially. You're going to need a wing for that. You go around, you're going to need wings. So Hunter is actually a real wing. He's a stopper. He's a play finisher, and I really like what he does. On the other hand, you had Karis LeVert and George Niang. Niang wasn't playing a lick of defense, and Karis LeVert is more of a ball stopper. And like he's trying to create, and you don't need him to create. You need guys to finish. You have creators. You need finishers. Hunter's a finisher. I like it. Valanciunas to the Kings. He's Sabonis's boy. They play together on the Olympic team for their country. Valanciunas goes to the 5. Sabonis goes to the 4, where Sabonis likes to play at the 4. Same with AD. They're very similar like that. They like playing the 4, but get used as the 5. Bogdan to the Clippers is good. It gives Norman Powell some insurance off the bench, and you just have some scoring. Dalton Connect to the Hornets is no longer because the Mark Williams trade is null and void. Marcus Smart to the Wizards. I seen him already coaching up Jordan Poole about how to basically how to get open off ball is the best way to kind of describe that, to where when you're getting face guarded or ball denied, how to get around it without getting an offensive foul by the refs. Hands up, you step into the body, and then you come across with the step through, and then you open up and clear that space for yourself, and then from there you want to make your move. But he was just teaching them little stuff, how to get into the teeth of the defense and how to basically make the defense back up and not you back up for the defense. It was a vet move, and you got to appreciate that stuff from Marcus Smart, and you just hope that he continues to teach people and bring the game to a higher place than where he left it. KPJ, speaking of that, hope KPJ can figure it out in Milwaukee. You got him going to the Bucks, the team that actually drafted him with the 30th pick. I love the Bucks, and I also loved KPJ coming out of USC. I didn't care that he was smoking weed in college. I was smoking weed in college. Let the man live. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was kind of ridiculous. They were trying to say he was a bad teammate. Man got it. His boy was getting jumped at the club, and he went in and defended him. I don't know. He had his man's back. That's all I gotta say. He had his man's back. I would have had my man's back too. Jericho Sims to the Bucks. He is like such a wall. I seen him at Summer League his rookie year, and he just feels like he is so wide. You know, he's like 6'10", but he's like a stocky 6'10", 6'9", 6'10". But he's got hell of bounce too. He can really jump. He can fly. But he's like an action figure. That's what Jericho Sims reminds me of. Too damn big. He looks like a wrestler. Patrick Baldwin Jr. to the Bucks also. So you have some guys right here, like KPJ, a highly touted high school prospect. absolutely infinite potential with him. Patrick Baldwin was actually the number one recruit in his high school class, and he didn't really do too much in college. He had some injuries. He was coached by his father, I believe, in college. Um, he just doesn't really have like the high end athleticism, but he has a lot of scoring chops. So I wonder if he could ever figure it out. I feel like he just has been going to the wrong teams in the wrong situations. People compared him to Kevin Durant. People also compared him to like Michael Porter Jr. and what his potential really was. And I think he is like the Kroger MPJ, like the great value MPJ, very generic brand um, of what MPJ does. He just doesn't look too fluid or anything, but at the same time, the dude could ball. He's smart. You watch him play. He's not a bum by any means, and it sucks that I've heard people label him as a bust. He just kind of seems like a softer player. He's not very physical. Um, Yeah, and like a no contact basketball league, I feel like Patrick Baldwin would be pretty solid. Like Jokic had the potential to be kind of like a Patrick Baldwin, but Jokic likes to get rough, and I feel like that's the big difference is having the basketball IQ while also knowing you got to get rough too, and you got to understand how you could use getting rough to your basketball IQ advantage. You know, you got to be able to really use your body on defense and on offense. You got to know how to shoulder bump the score. You just have to. You have to train for these things. You can't just be in the gym putting up jump shots. And I feel like that's Patrick Baldwin's whole game. Is like I just be in the gym putting up jump shots, and that's how I play. Like 1-on-0. I feel like Patrick Baldwin does a lot of 1-on-0 training, and you could see that because he shies away from all contact when he scores. Like I said, he's a smart scorer and score at will. But the problem is he's afraid of contact, which means he's doing way too much 1-on-0 training. He needs to do some more guarded drills. I don't know. That's my opinion. Could be wrong, but I feel like he needs to really buck up there. Zach Collins to the Bulls gets them a backup big. Kevin Herter to the Bulls. Honestly, the Bulls got better. I know Levine had a good season this year, but at the same time, it kind of felt like it was like a spite success. Like he hasn't played for the past 2 years. The Bulls didn't really want to shop him. They were kind of holding him hostage, and he was holding himself hostage, if anything. And he finally realized I need to go play if I want to make it out of here. So basically, he was doing good in spite of the Bulls. And I feel like now you get two guys who potentially just want to play and want a fresh start and get a chance. Zach Collins coming from the Spurs, Kevin Herter coming from the Kings, Trey Jones going to the Bulls as well. So you got another stable ball handler coming in there, but they have ball handlers. You don't necessarily need ball handlers for the Bulls. You got Kobe White, you know, you got Matas Buzelis. He's coming in. He's a great ball handler on the low. I like what they got there. Champ to the Clippers. The Clippers are in full tank mode. It feels like these are bad trades in my opinion. Like Drew Eubanks is the best player they got. Um and they didn't really need like a big like that. I guess they traded a big. I'm forgetting who they got rid of. Mobamba, I think. They got rid of Mobamba. So yeah, you got to fill it in with Drew Eubanks. Obviously, they are different players. Eubanks and Mobamba, the physiology is a little bit different. He's a much smaller big, but he still is a shot blocker and he does his own stuff. But he's just a little different than Mobamba. But he has hands. Eubanks has hands. He could catch a pass to where Bamba, I don't know. Bamba's not that smooth. Davis and Bagley to the Grizzlies. These are failed, hyped draft picks. Some people were so hyped about Johnny Davis. There wasn't nothing I liked about Johnny Davis in college. I feel like the refs gave him the whistle. There were so many opportunities where I feel like there were offensive fouls half the shit he was doing to score. He was like diving into people. He was doing dumb stuff. And do you remember when D Wade or like Paul Pierce, there was like this little era where they would like do this little pump fake at the mid range and they would dive into you and shit like that. All that stuff kind of got like outlawed and people stopped doing it. Obviously Harden and some people. flop and other things like that. But like this guy's whole game was like annoying and foul baity, and it wasn't really good. I thought his defense was overly aggressive. I feel like he was hacking, and then he got hurt all the time. So I was so out on Johnny Davis, it couldn't even be funny. I wouldn't have took him in the second round with the 60th pick. Straight up, it was a waste of a pick. With any pick in the draft was a waste of a pick. Just my opinion. Bagley. Bagley had the chance. He just didn't expand on his game, and I don't think he really loved the game like he should. Um, the lefty. Oh my God! Even in high school, he was just such a killer, but couldn't really figure out what to do. Levert to the Hawks, T-Man to the Hawks, Niang to the Hawks, Bones to the Hawks. So the Hawks got like some wing depth. Overall, they got better. I think, if you were trying to get rid of Hunter and you're trying to figure things out, you want to swap some new guys in. I thought Hunter could have won Sixth Man of the Year, so I don't know if the Hawks necessarily got better, but they give themselves some options. And like I said, if you already know some of these guys are out the door, you get better by trading them, even if you get worse on the court. Just because you have a more open mind of what you could do. You brought in four new guys, four chances at four hits. You already knew Hunter was out next year or whatever. He was already saying it. So you might as well get four new guys to come in, see if any of them gel. Does this guy like Trey? Does he work well with him? Does he communicate well on the screens? Does he, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's four opportunities to potentially aim for where they want to go. So that's solid. And it's a good move by the GM, Landry Fields, who was like a backup journeyman type point guard. So he understands like you need to kind of shuffle through. You could find some talent shuffling through second rounders and these guys on minimum contracts because he himself believes that he brought value on minimum deals and was worth more than that, and he could have been a sleeper and other things. So I always like the role playing guys that are running organizations. I feel like they have a better grasp and they're more self-aware of what players are and who they were and reality. So good luck to the Hawks building their squad. Davion Mitchell to the Heat is also a very slept on move. We're talking about the Heat making moves and sending, Jimmy to the Warriors and yada yada yada. But I like Off Night. Is that so bad? Is that so bad? I like Off Night. I think he's better than Terry Rozier this season. I'd rather play Off Night than Terry Rozier. So watch out in the playoffs for Off Night. Nurkic to the Hornets. They're going to be in hell. Reddish to the Hornets. Oh my God, this is just like the Hoop mixtape team. Jalen Hood-Schifino to the Jazz. Peace, Jalen Hood-Schifino. All through the draft process, Jalen Hood-Schifino, everybody. Oh my God, these guys. The fucking how many the Sam Vicinis of the world, and like all the draft guys. Maybe not Mike Schmidt. Who's the other guy I'm thinking of? The guy with the lisp. They all loved him. And I was watching Jalen Hood-Schifino. This was 2-3. I want to say 2-3 years ago. He was a rookie, right? Was last year Trace Jackson Davis's rookie year, or was that 2 years ago? Either way, during that draft process, I was watching a lot of tape on him, and I seen Indiana throughout the season, and I noticed something that I don't think anybody noticed, that Trace Jackson Davis was the best player on Indiana. He was a senior. He was slightly undersized at the 5, but he was the best player on that team. And Jalen Hood-Schifino was the youngest starter on the team. And he was 6'6" guard, looked like he had all the tools and everything. But in reality, I feel like he could just get to the rack. He was just a 6'6" athlete that gets to the rack. Let's be real. He could dribble. He had a little bit of vision. I wouldn't even say like a point guard vision. But I think Trace Jackson Davis made everybody on that team look better, and he made Jalen Hood-Schifino look like a genius. And we're seeing that now in the league that, like, all right, well, you're not playing on Indiana and you're not going against Bowling Green anymore. And you're not just like rolling over Appalachian State, like You're not just going into Creighton and killing it. It's not Creighton anymore. You know, it's the Cleveland Cavaliers, and you're not going against Kyrie Thomas. You're going against Donovan Mitchell. Things just get upgraded. And I feel like Jalen Hood-Schifino, his skill ain't there yet. And if anything, he needed to stay in college, because if he stayed in college, he would have been playing with Khalil Ware. And I feel like you play with Trace Jackson Davis, then you play with Khalil Ware. You have another year or two to develop yourself as a player. And I feel like Jalen Hood-Schifino would have been a top 10 pick and actually been a real NBA asset. Now, he's an asset, if that makes sense. You know what I'm saying? He's just like NBA property, but he's not essentially giving the value that teams are looking and trading for. He's just the requisite trade back to pay back somebody now. That's what I'm saying. He's not even looked at as a commodity. He's just looked at as something to be used to sell. And that sucks, because Jalen Hood-Schifino had potential. He made some good moves over there in Indiana, but ever since he's got drafted, hasn't really done much. I understand he plays for the Santa Barbara Lakers and their whole thing, but he would have been a real NBA player if he stayed around. But he's not, and I don't think he ever will be. KJ Martin to the Jazz. I actually think KJ Martin got moved somewhere else. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm misremembering that. Maybe there was like he got traded there, then he got bought out, and then signed somewhere. It might just be KJ Martin on the Jazz. Let me see. KJ Martin. I'll look him up. Everybody else, I'm not looking you up. Oh, yeah, he is on the Jazz. And he picked number 99. See, that's why I thought he was going to get cut and everything, but I guess he's not. Josh Richardson to the Jazz, as he should. Laravia to the Kings. DeLon Wright to the Knicks. Kleber to the Lakers. Morris to the Lakers. Caleb Martin to the Mavs. Christie to the Mavs. Bruce Brown to the Pelicans. They, they got a defender. Go Pelicans. You got Herb Jones. You got Jose Alvarado over there. Shit, even Trey Murphy can defend. So I like it. You just bring in guys who could play basketball, defend, stretch the floor, play make. That's what Bruce Brown does. He does a little bit of everything. Same with Olenek. Olenek can play make and defend a little bit himself, and he can space the floor. Schroeder to the Pistons. That could be a good backup for them. You got Lindy Waters going to the Pistons too. I mean, he's going to be like an eighth string point guard there if Schroeder is like the seventh string. Kyle Anderson to the Raptors, but I think Kyle Anderson actually ended up somewhere else. Yeah, he's on the Heat. And then you got Patrick Baldwin Jr. to the Spurs. So he's actually not even going to the Bucks. He got retraded. Moving on, James Wiseman to the Raptors. He was bought by the Pacers, bought out by the Pacers. The Pacers hit up the Raptors and said, "Yo, we want to trade you James Wiseman." They said, "What for?" They said, "Nothing. We're going to give you cash. Can you take James Wiseman? We'll pay you to take him." And the Raptors said, "Bet." And that's what happened. Cash considerations to the Raptors and for James Wiseman. Jaden Springer to the Rockets. My God, another 6'4", 6'5" athlete to the Rockets. I don't really know if they need a Jaden Springer. I feel like they got Cam Whitmore at home. What do you need Jaden Springer for? Cody Zeller to the Rockets, another little big. QG to the Sixers. That's actually good. Jared Butler to the Sixers. Haven't heard that name in a little bit. McLaughlin to the Spurs. Too small. You can't be 5'10" playing with Wemby. What are you doing? Micic to the Suns. Cody Martin to the Suns. These trades right here, I mean, Micic just picked up triple doubles by himself over there in Charlotte. So the guy has talent. And I believe this is the good Martin brother. So if anything, I think the Suns actually got a little better. Kobe Jones to the Wizards. That means the Kings are losing another ball handler. Not too good. Len to the Wizards. I forgot he was even in the league still. AJ Johnson to the Wiz. PJ Tucker to half the NBA. Daniel Tice traded wave. Jackson traded wave. Mobamba traded wave. City Sidoko. Oh, wow. City Sidoko. Sissoko got traded and waived. Yeah, and the Blazers didn't make a move. calling me Canadian on Twitter because I said some Canadian slang. Not funny. Let's stop sharing the screen. Well, guys, this is probably the worst pod I've ever done. It was very scatterbrained. I tried to trim my nose hair, and now everything is growing back and it's itchy. I'm like, the worst. I used to just pull them, pluck them. Then I got me a little buzzer. I tried to put the buzzer up there, and now it's made it worse than ever. Now I'm just itchy. Could have just had nose hair. I didn't care. Grown man shit. Old man shit. Anyway, thank you guys for not tuning in to this episode. This was the least viewed pod I think I've ever done. It's Super Bowl Sunday. People are tired, resting, getting ready, pre-gaming, doing some shots. I should be doing the same. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to go pre-game. So thank you so much for tuning in today. And I actually want to thank you for not tuning in today. The majority of the world didn't tune in today, and I think that was for their benefit. There was some good information dropped, but the information would have got called crazy anyway. What do you mean Sean Strickland fighting him a second time is easier than the first? What do you mean? Never heard that a day in my life. You did today. You did today. So thank you for tuning in. I don't think I got anything else for you guys. It was a very unprepared episode because what I did have prepared was to talk to Ritchie about some topics. And instead, I can't really ask questions if there's no audience or there's no co-host. So it's just blabbing my opinions, which nobody seems to care for. That's life. Nobody cares. Do better. Peace.